Hey, thank y'all for bearing with me through this. I don't need to continue introducing myself. You guys know my name already. I just want to talk to you about why I feel like I'm qualified to be here. I have 20 plus years in the engine business. Power generation was something for about 18 of those years that I did as a second ventricle. I'm certified as a expert witness in the federal court for rotating equipment failure analysis, metallurgy, Cat Cummins, Detroit Diesel. I mean, you name it. I've crawled in and out of engines my entire career. How I got here was in 2021. Literally, whether you want to hear this part of the story or not, the oil field had about chewed me up and spit me out for about 18 years. I was tired of clientele who wanted cheap, fast, and good, and I could never provide the right thing for the right customer. And so I actually sat in my home on August 28th of 2021, prayed with my wife that God would use this storm to change the path of my career. I wanted to do something different that created more impact. I was tired of getting railroaded by these oil companies. And as it would have it, we woke up 6 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. the following morning in the aftermath of Ida. I live in Lockport, so we were right in the path of Ida. And I walked outside to observe the damage. And when I walked out to my front yard, I looked back at my house. It looked like a Generac commercial. It was the only lit up house for miles in that area, and I had a generator. As a diesel mechanic for so many years, I taught myself how to work on it during that time. And so we didn't know what we were gonna do. I knew the Port Fourchon, which is the predominant area of service that we worked on, was out of commission. Oil and gas industry was gonna be imminently affected at some point. So all of my technicians were evacuated. Probably 20, 30 mechanics evacuated, displaced. And when we finally got phone service, I started bringing them back. And they were like, boss, I saw pictures of my house. What am I gonna do? I don't know exactly, if we have a job. I said, look, I don't know either. We'll figure something out. Come back, I'm gonna help you guys get back into your homes. We'll worry about the business later. And so as my brother and I got on the road with a Polaris Ranger, because we couldn't even get on the road with the car, a couple of chainsaws. So we're gonna go down to my office and figure out what's still standing, which was located in Galliano. And so we drove down there on a Polaris Ranger. We figured out that our business was gonna be forever impacted. The building was tore apart, inventory in the parking lot. I'm like, man, God, this is not what I had planned when I was praying. Like, I don't know what you had planned, but not for me. So when we start coming back home, if you've been down in Lafourche Parish, we have the Intercoastal Waterway. When we get up on top of the bridge, it was like you hadn't had your phone on for 2 days. And I started getting a ton of notifications when I got up on top of the bridge, pretty much saying, can you help me with my generator? And so that's whenever we became a generator company. So GenGatorz was born on August 29th of 2021. When I got into the business during the aftermath of Hurricane Ida, I started myself. I was the first technician with boots on the ground. My techs were still trying to come back into town, and I was doing the calls. Well, in a state of emergency, I'm showing up to people's houses. How do you collect money from somebody in a state of emergency? I don't have the ability to run a credit card. I'm not gonna take a check, and I don't know how long this is gonna last. I'm not taking you whatever cash you have left. So I just started telling people, don't worry about it. So it doesn't take long when you offer a free service for the public to start figuring it out. So our calls went from 0 to 1,000 very quick. My office staff and personnel that were evacuated, I had them stay where they were, set up an office in a hotel room, start dispatching material, getting data so that I could become a generator company to help our community. And something that somebody mentioned about revenue producing, whether or not natural gas generators produce revenue for the gas company. I don't disagree with they don't. What I would like everybody to understand is what having a home generator or business generator allows you to do is restore normalcy of life. So when you can get back to normal, what are the odds of the local infrastructure coming back to life if everybody can get out there and work because they don't have to worry about their home? Me and my family had about 17 people living with us at that time. And I was able to get my kids out, serving meals, helping out because God's hand was on our house much like it was on Donald Trump's head. I don't know why, but it just knocked everybody out around me, but not our house. So it allowed us to restore normalcy. And if it's only a revenue producing thing, I think we miss a large part of the impact that generators can have on a community. So that's how I got here, who I am and how I got here. Learning from Hurricane Ida, storm data, what did we see, what did we repair? So we talked about this outside and someone else mentioned it multiple times. When you're dealing with a lack of professionalism in the industry, the low-hanging fruit is to blame someone who's not on the scene. So a lot of times when the generator company or the generator technician or the electrician or Chuck in a truck, whoever did the install, he couldn't troubleshoot it, he just blamed it on the utility provider. Well, Entergy was out of commission, so we can't blame them. Well, it got to be the gas company, so call South Coast Gas. How many calls did y'all get like that after Ida? So what we found is 99%, literally 99% of the time when we arrived on scene, it was improper installation. So what do you mean? What does that mean? Does it automatically mean that it's too small of a hose or the improper meter? The regulation says it has to be off the house by 18 inches. If it's 12 inches and on the induction side lies an air conditioning condenser and on the exhaust side lies a crepe myrtle, well, guess what? That temperature is going to rise. It's an air-cooled product. Generac says that the unit can run up to 350 degrees to touch and still be within normal operating specs. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to touch anything at 350 degrees. So when the inefficiency goes out, when the inefficiency of the performance goes out of the window, gas consumption skyrockets. So it wasn't just the line size. It wasn't just inadequate gas meter. It was the location of the installation. A lot of these things are under somebody's window. I don't know the numbers, but carbon monoxide deaths due to generators is a thing. So I think that what we learned most of the time and what forced me to pursue this industry with fire and passion was the lack of professionalism and the unrealistic expectations that the homeowners were given. Robbie, he's one of my outside sales reps. How much time do we put into our in-home consultation and what?
Hour minimum.
So, but how much time do we put in on a weekly basis discussing it to enhance that experience for the client? I mean, this is 2-3 hours a week. Every week we're talking about just how to educate the consumer so that they have some realistic expectation of what this thing is supposed to do. An air-cooled natural gas product is not designed to save your life and run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not. The manufacturer is going to tell you it's capable of doing this. Well, I don't care what the manufacturer says, because if there's anybody involved in this entire equation that's worried about money, it's the generator manufacturers. They just want to sell boxes and sell SKU numbers. So whatever education that we can put out to the client, that's what they get. Do you know that when these generators are load tested, they only load test them for 8 seconds. So if it sees 22 kW for 8 seconds, they stamp it, box it, call it good, and it goes out. So when you're educating a consumer on what the expectations are, and your in-home consultation lasts 5 minutes, and all you worried about is the bottom price, you're leaving a lot on the table and a lot of open-ended, unrealistic expectations for the client. So when we do the in-home consultation, or not just my company, a reputable generator company is educating the client on about 90% of what we talked about in here today. So I think what we saw were unmet, unrealistic expectations and very poor lack of professionalism. Somebody mentioned 6% saturation. That's probably pretty close. In Louisiana, believe it or not, it's only about 10% saturation. About 10% of homes have a natural gas generator. Look at where we're headed. So one of the things that inspired me about this business is that Google, if you want, but how old the automobile industry is from its inception. How old the heavy equipment industry is since its inception. Well, the standby generator business is about 21 years old. If you think about where we were in 2005 after Katrina, a 20 kW couldn't fit in the back of most people's pickup truck, and it was over the top, unaffordable. Automatic transfer switches weren't near what they are now. Now we got 26 kW generators that take up a quarter of this table. You can talk to it from your cell phone. It's smart monitored, and you can shut it off and stop it from our office and monitor even if the air filter is dirty from the confines of our office. We got there from 2005 to 2024. So the infancy stages of this industry is profound. Where do we go from here? How do we advance? How do we get ahead of these type of conversations, which is why I'm here. Home standby power industry is rapidly growing. Homeowners seek to protect themselves from power outages with an increasing number of severe weather events and aging infrastructure. The need for reliable backup power is becoming more of a necessity than a luxury. We battle that now. Is it really a luxury? We meet with DSLD, Level Homes, D.R. Horton, a lot of the home builders. At some point, this is going to be a multiple choice checkoff when you build in your house of I want a generator. And no one is talking to the gas suppliers. No one even understands the impact and magnitude of what it does to the gas supplier. Don't get me wrong, one part of me wants to sell a generator to everybody I come in contact with. But it's because of the impact it provides the client. I wasn't concerned about the impact it applied to the environment or to the industry. So I think the current state of the industry, generators aren't going away. 2.7 million in Texas out of power as a result of a Category 1 that hit Houston. I can tell you right now, our inventory got depleted because we thought we'd help out. Several other people shipped generators to Texas, and there are thousands being installed right now with no permit because the power's out and we're in a state of emergency. Center point, if they think they're getting it from Greg Abbott right now, watch what's going to happen when the gas becomes a problem. So somebody mentioned Lafourche and Terrebonne being the mecca or generator capital of the world. Houston is going to have the biggest problem on their hands that anybody's ever seen. And that, I think, is what's going to take national legislation to get involved, is when you affect that many people in such a concise area. I hate to say it, but ain't nobody worried about us in the marsh. They're just waiting for us to break off into the Gulf of Mexico. So, but Houston, I believe, is going to create a huge impact and change legislation in the industry. Then been here. How do you affect the grid? I'm not a natural gas expert. Let me just say that. I'm a generator expert, rotating equipment expert. If I say something out of line, having to do with specs on the gas, somebody stop me. I'm not too proud to learn. But I can say this. Non-permitted installations, huge problem. I told you why several different times. I think Mr. Mike, when I first met Mr. Mike, South Coast Gas, he said it right away. We have about 18,000 customers and we have about 4,000 generators. I laughed. No, it's way more than that. It's way more than that. I would venture to say there's 100 generators in the state being put in every day. We put in 2 to 3, they put in 4, and we're 2 companies in a small area, not counting City of New Orleans, City of Baton Rouge, Lafayette. So hundreds are being installed a day. I'm going to say about 30% of them are being professionally done. Entergy is the biggest hurdle in a lot of this when it goes through the permitting process. Entergy can easily pass the buck on anybody. When the generator is required to perform at its absolute best, it's when conditions are at their absolute worst. Entergy's, they're off the table. They don't have power. So the generator problem is not theirs anymore. It falls on the gas company. And so when we look at why the permitting is important, why doing it correctly is important, it's obviously for safety. Somebody mentioned fires. I've seen several of them catch fire. Look at it this way. It's an air-cooled engine. Anybody that knows anything about engines, every time an air-cooled engine starts and runs, it's decreasing its lifespan. It's not like a liquid cool where the cylinder block maintains a certain temperature. That thing is wiping away iron every time the piston rings travel from top dead center to bottom dead center. So when you remove metal from something that produces horsepower, what happens? It decreases. A 22 kW propane-rated natural gas generator leaves the factory, propane, leaves the factory making about 19.5 kilowatts on a natural gas system. Well, I don't care if your home's fortified, smartified, whatever-fied, as electric motors their lifespan goes on, they require more load to operate. So you got refrigerator, freezer, AC unit, garage doors, pool pump, anything in your home that has an electric motor that requires power, over its lifespan is going to require more power to efficiently operate. You're doing that with a generator whose lifespan and power is decreasing every time it starts up. So this 22 kW is all I really need for now, maybe, but where are you going to be at in a year, 2 years, 5 years, when your home energy demands increase and the generator output decreases? That's inefficient on the gas grid. So a poorly performing generator running at 75 to 90% load is going to increase BTU, increase gas consumption like you would not believe. So the power of installing it correctly and up to a unified permitting code is exactly how you mitigate wasted gas. It has to be installed properly and sized adequately by a professional using technology, pulling a load calculation so that I don't sell someone a generator exactly. If it specs for a 35, it's irresponsible of me to sell them a 35 or anything longer. I'm trying to speak life into the client for that their life expectancy of the generator far outlasts the warranty. So I kind of hit that, all of those features. Let's see. Natural gas versus propane. I would be willing to bet 90% of the market does not understand that every unit that's ever been installed can run off both. Every natural gas generator that is currently installed can also run from propane. Now, we can do it digitally through a computer and adjust orifice. Used to be you had to take the regulator apart, change an orifice. But if there is a moratorium on natural gas generators, the unit is not deemed useless. But we have to be able to provide some type of propane. And I'm saying we, speaking for the entire industry. So they can run off of both. It's actually more efficient to run off of propane. So if you are thinking about, if your municipality is on the borderline of saying, time out, we're going to do a moratorium, the contingency plan is educate the consumer about propane. Find a propane supplier that can help you take some skin off your back. If you're a private municipality, can you bring in propane? Can you distribute propane? If you're concerned about revenue, if it's for a generator, I can tell you a 500-gallon pressed full tank of propane delivered on site's about $5,000. And the cost to deliver that is probably less than $2,000. So if it's a revenue or a profitability concern, can you as a municipality furnish propane for generators? So here's some of the things that we have talked about. We talked about delayed start. Kohler is our flagship brand. So there's certain things that I can't say because I'm under NDA with the design team, but I sell and distribute and service, maintain, and warranty for all major brands. Kohler, Generac, Cummins, Briggs & Stratton, Honeywell, Coleman, you name it, we service it. If it's got an engine, we repair it. Kohler was the first one to come to the table and say, what can we do to help you guys? So, well, first off, you can design a generator that runs on about 2 inches of water column. And they said, okay. That one conversation in the aftermath of Hurricane Ida has got to a point where now we are redesigning the new air-cooled units that are going to hit the Gulf Coast that are going to max capacity 26 kW at about 3.5 inches of water column. That's huge going forward, where most of the scenario is 3.5 to 11. Line pressure, somebody talked about PSI, it's like less than 1 PSI that most of our units run on. Well, if I can have a unit that's performing at max capacity on my minimum requirement of fuel, I think that's hugely impactful. And I think the manufacturers have a responsibility to get involved there. It's a health, environmental, and human hazard not to be efficient. So delaying the start. Currently, right now, in about 99% of the new equipment transfer switches, you can delay start from 3 to 15 seconds. That's a Kohler product. Generac is a shorter time period, but it can be done. Briggs & Stratton cannot. But I can take a Kohler right now and have it start at 3 seconds all the way out to 15 seconds by increments. And any fuel source, anybody who knows anything about engines or any type of fuel source, it's the initial startup that draws the most capacity. It's not when it gets to peak operating revolution per minute or load, it's initial startup. So That same NDA for design that we're currently under, inside that NDA encompasses two things: lowering the minimum pressure inches of water column required by natural gas, and then increasing the delay start capacity. So I could install a module now that would delay start out to 10 minutes. How do we get that widespread? That's why I'm here today, so I think we'll come back to that. Dual fuel, that valve is actually in existence. The reason why it's not being done is because it can't be done with your crawfish pot. Like, you can't use a little 5-gallon pot to start a 38 kW and then transfer it over to natural gas. You're going to need a little bit more volume and capacity for that. But that is available now. How we mandate and deliver it to the consumer, that's what we learn and figure out together. But the technology is here. We're in an era right now that if there's any time we could prevent a moratorium from happening using tech, today is the day. Today's the day that we work together because the technology is here. We got to get ahead of it. So dual fuel, delay start is here. Administering it and educating the consumer is a shared responsibility. New technology, the Uniform Permitting Protocol. I'm of the belief that LGA needs to have a permit. I'm also of the belief that if you install natural gas generators, you should be a member of this organization. I also believe that you can participate in quarterly meetings between the suppliers, the installers, and I believe there should be fines and sanctions against people who don't participate in elevating the minimum requirement. Our company, one of our core values is setting a gold standard. We operate in the most stringent areas. Anybody here from St. Tammany? Okay, good. St. Tammany and Orleans. Anybody here from Orleans? Oh my God. I believe I can get elected as president maybe easier than I can to get a generator permit. But that's not a bad thing. So how we deliver to a team of employees, a team of permitting specialists, a team of customer service representatives, how do we determine who we're going to be as a company? We can't let the municipalities determine that. You're right. What is the toughest area for us to work in? That's our gold standard. So if it can't pass in St. Tammany and it's not going to pass in Orleans, we dang sure ain't going to do it in Lafourche, because I can't fluctuate the emotions and wherewithal and SOP to my employees of operating in multiple parishes. What is the gold standard? Do I believe the permitting process on the electrical side has gotten somewhat cumbersome? Yes, but it's laughable on the gas side. And we, as the Gas Association, bear the biggest load and the biggest burden. So I believe the permitting process is something installers, wholesalers, dealers should want to be a part in. I want you guys to regulate my industry because it omits Chuck in a truck. I don't want to compete against him, not because I can't compete with his price, because I don't get to administer my level of expertise and professionalism on an industry I care about and save a homeowner from the power of unrealistic expectations. So I need the minimum requirement to be put on my company. I need that to elevate the standard. So I think most people would be concerned that generator companies would want to run from a permitting system or a more stringent permitting system. If they run, let them run. That's the ones that need to go. The ones who want to do it right and establish a gold standard, we should embrace them with open arms so that we can work together. Because there are companies that do want to do it right. Here's a list of the buying experiences. Here's what's crazy. The manufacturer will tell you this, that this is the #1 worst buying experience for a customer. You go to a big box store, you save up your $6,500 or $7,000. You want to be without power because your mom's living with you and you don't want her sweating, because when she sweats, she also gets on your tail. So I'm going to go to Home Depot because they got them in stock on Sunday, and I'm going to write my $7,000 check, and they're going to stick it in the back of my truck, and I got no idea how I'm going to get it out. But my uncle's buddy's cousin, he knows somebody that can put it in. And I'm out of power right now, so we're in a state of emergency. I don't even need anything. And this guy goes and puts the generator in, and all he does is put a thorn in my side. Because when that generator doesn't function, the homeowner gets told by Chuck that there's no gas pressure. And then I get told the next in-home consultation that, I really want a generator, but y'all can't even guarantee me gas pressure. I'm like, where do you get that from? Well, my neighbor had Chuck installed it, and he said it doesn't run right because there's not enough gas pressure. That generator, the one that's 2 inches from your house and 2 inches from your AC unit, right underneath a window, and you have 5 central ACs, it's a 20 kW. Unrealistic expectations. Big box stores, the worst to buy. I fought this from the day I got in this industry to regulate this, control the big box stores, get involved. You're not empowering the dealer, you are saturating the market with unrealistic expectations, and guess why they won't do it? Because Home Depot buys $3, $4, $5, $8, $10 million of generators at a time. Why would they? They don't give a crap about the consumer. Here I got 2 Chucks in a truck again, professional team. Listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, this meeting is half the size it is if generators are only installed by professionals. I promise you, half the problems that you guys are having. When I met with Mr. Mike and Selima, originally, when I started talking to them about their concerns and their problems, we were in their boardroom. We produced a hurricane preparedness event where I just got up and educated about 300 or 400 people about homeowner responsibility. As a generator owner, you have the most responsibility. You need to be responsible. You wouldn't put a brick on the throttle pedal of your lawnmower and put it up against the wall. You know what saves it from burning up? 6 gallons of gas and it's over. Well, a generator will have an endless supply. So if it's improperly running, you have an endless supply of gas, you have an endless opportunity for problems. So being a professional and mandating that these things get done by a professional, I believe we can't move forward without it. Do brands matter? Hey, Generac, best marketing company in the world. Might even be up there with Coca-Cola and Dr. Pepper. But that's what they're about. They're about marketing, not about consumer education. All of these brands have pros and cons. I didn't come here today to sell anybody on my particular product. I don't make the generators. We talk about this every week in our culture meetings. If Kohler says you can't sell any more of our product, well, we'll just have to move to somebody else and they're going to have to come and meet us at our standards. I think for the most part, the brand that I've had the most dealings with who are forward-facing, client-concerned, and progressive in regards to thinking about advancement has been Kohler. I would attribute that to their structure, their environment, small family-owned company per se, manufactured out of Wisconsin. I think that they've given us the best tools to advance as a dealer, making sure that the homeowner's voice is heard. So, let's see. Maintenance. If you never change the oil on your car, is it pretty common knowledge that the fuel consumption is going to go up? When an air filter is not maintained, what happens? Fuel consumption goes up. I have our maintenance membership. The average generator company across the state right now charges about $300 a year to maintain a generator. That's not going to work. It takes me $300 to start the truck and send him out the door. What am I administering to the unit? It's not a triage situation. I'm not trying to save the generator's life. I'm trying to prolong the life. So we charge, let me just say, a lot more than that. Not because I'm trying to get over on people, because I want this to be the last unit I sell them forever. I want the warranty to be fulfilled. I want a professional technician to maintain a relationship with the product and the homeowner. So when we go out 3 times a year, you can't read this. I had some. It says, about the bottom of the page, it says, pressure test gas plumbing. Does that serve y'all? If you know that once a year, I'm pressure testing the gas plumbing on this residence. Whatever I can get a meter on, whatever I can shut off with valves, I'm pressure testing it to make sure we don't have any leaks. I can promise you 90% of the $300 maintenance plans are not doing that. They're showing up, changing the oil, starting it up, and leaving. They're not going to meter the load. They're not going to amp clamp to check the load capacity. They're not going to do the things that it requires because from a business perspective, you cannot do that for $300. So I'm not of the camp that a cheap maintenance plan is the way to go. I believe that you invest in the product, it will give you the results that you demand. We visit 1 time a year, 2 times a year, or up to 3 times a year for our exclusive, which we call Category 5 membership. And all of those, even at the bare minimum, we're pressure testing the gas plumbing. Here's actually a slide. This is an improperly maintained unit versus a maintained unit. So what goes in, the prime mover of a generator is the engine. It's the most important part. Stator, rotor do nothing if the engine doesn't start. So I got to concern myself with maintaining that product. If you educate the consumer the right way, right out of the gate, they're going to be, why would I concern myself if my generator is efficient on gas? Well, you'll be the first one they lock out, buddy, because you're not taking care of it. Your unit, which was undersized, did not meet expectations, is worn, improperly maintained, the BTUs, heat, everything goes up, and they just a draw on the gas grid. This type of client is who you guys do not want. You want this type of client. You want the client that says, I want to do it right. I want to do it safe. I want to maintain it. I want to get my fulfillment on the warranty, and I want to be a good citizen to the gas grid. If you're doing this, you ain't helping, you're hurting. Homeowner responsibility. I believe a lot of what we're in here to do, everybody in here is a public servant. So we're serving the residents, we're serving the public, but we've done the worst job of educating them as a whole. It's 2024. Digital marketing is everything right now. How do I get the message across to the consumer without invoking panic that, hey, there are concerns with the gas grid? You have to do it through the power of the dealer. Those are the people in the in-home consultations. I can't show up to an in-home consultation with energy and a representative of the gas company every time I go. Our sales teams do about 8 to 16 appointments a day, and we're one company, and we're not even the biggest company. Hundreds per day of in-home consultations or inquiries. Between Friday of last week, the weekend, and into Monday, just Kohler, who only owns about 7 to 10% of the market share, Generac owns about 70% of the market share. The other 30% are broken up between Kohler, Cummins, and Briggs & Stratton. Kohler alone had 5,000 leads from one county in Texas on people trying to get a generator. So we get 8 to 10 leads a day from one lead source every single day on people trying to get a generator. Our average amount of leads could be up to 50 or 60 a day. When the power blinks, it could be 100. So the problem's not going anywhere. The industry is, I think, a moratorium would be the first solution to solve the problem. I think is the last. I think consumer education, making sure that we edify and elevate the people who want to do it right and hold each other to a higher standard. Forcing the client to do maintenance. I think if you establish a rapport and relationship with every consumer in your grid who has a generator, there is a way to administer a responsible SOP, making sure that they understand that you should have maintenance records with a dealer. You should have it adequately sized and installed. And if you don't, you are the one that gets shut off. I don't think it's that out of this world that we could hold the homeowner equally as responsible, even though we're serving them as public servants. Things I saw, it says keep unit assembled. Did anybody pass a house after a long outage and they had a fan on it, a tent over it, and all the panels off the unit? Well, let me just say that unit is not designed to run that way. You just remove the ability to channel the air correctly through the engineers that design them. They're smarter than me. They're made to be run with the panels on. If you take it off, the air dissipation turns into a circulatory problem. And if you run it on a long period of time, all the grass around the unit will be dead. If you channel the air correctly, the grass will die on the exhaust side. That's how important it is to keep the panels on. That's the result of an uneducated consumer. At the end of the day, they have no idea what they're doing. If I'm a dealer, I don't care if I sold the unit, I'm knocking on the door saying, you cannot do that. Generac, when you pass it, has a little red, green, or yellow light. I stroke out when I pass a house that's on orange or red, even though I didn't sell the unit, because that client is going to hurt my industry when that unit doesn't start. and they don't know that it's not going to start because they're uneducated. And following the manufacturer guidelines. I could even replace this by following the professional dealer guidelines. The guidelines by the professional dealer, you will read nowhere in the manufacturer's book on how to service the unit in run intervals. So air-cooled unit, how much time do you think it should run before you stop it? Spitball it. Somebody throw something at me.
5 days.
Maximum 24 hours. Maximum 24 hours. 12 hours, that's the clients that's going to help this problem. Because they bought an air-cooled generator to give them life-saving measures, not I need to get under the AC. So if you run it at 24 hours, how long should you shut it down for? We tell all of our clients, pop the hood until you can touch the thing that says don't touch. You ain't ready to check the oil. It has to drain down. When you pull your car up after a long drive, you hear that tick, 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 tick. When you walk away, that's the oil draining back into the crankcase, hitting the void area on the oil pan that there's no current oil there, which means it's all in the galleries. So there's no oil pan on an air-cooled generator. It's just a crankcase. These things hold 1.8 quarts of oil. Well, when it's hot and that oil breaks down and it's traveling through the galleries in that system, when you check the oil right after you shut it down, it's going to say low. And so what does a consumer do? And the next time they come out there, it's low again. They add oil and eventually burn the generator up. So understanding the manufacturer guidelines are they're not going to tell you shut the engine down until you can touch the exhaust. We've just calculated that that's about the right amount of time to put this thing on standby. We educate them how to use it. All right, look, it's 95 degrees in the shade. After Hurricane Ida, it was like 195. So if you're outside working, shut it off. If you leave and go to work, you ran it all night long. Everybody got a good night's sleep. We woke up, we got a shower, our freezer's charged, our refrigerator's charged. Shut the unit off. Those are the consumers that are going to help this problem, not hurt it. It's the consumer that thought they bought an air-cooled, end-all, be-all piece of equipment that's going to run 24 hours a day for 5 days. Liquid-cooled, 5 days. You have to shut it down. Manufacturer's not going to tell you that. Same reason, it's a gas engine. They do consume oil. I don't care if you use Royal Purple, Royal Green, whatever fancy oil you can get your hands on, that is irrelevant. After 5 days, the oil is broken down. It's running at 75% load plus. You got to shut it down and at least check the oil. Same situation till you can touch the exhaust. Don't check it. So those are things that we teach the client during the in-home consultation and post-install. What should you know, or what you should know? Service and suppliers need to be aware of the overall use of home standby power. The supplier and homeowners need to know. That's what I got ahead of the slides, but that's what I was talking about. Educating the client. I think if we release a press release right now that says natural gas grid statewide is on the verge of moratorium, you're going to send people into a panic. But there's a way to administer the message, and I believe you have to lean on relationship capital. Creating relationships between the professional dealers, the gas supplier, and the electrical supplier, using that relationship capital, professionalism, setting a gold standard is how we deliver the concern to the consumer. We don't invoke panic by just dropping a moratorium without letting anybody know. How we communicate with the supplier. When we got in this business, Nick is here with me running the camera. We started a company called GenGatorz, which it was to educate dealers. So we do dealer development around the country. We do it for Kohler. Kohler has about 1,200 dealers nationwide. And we coach them, train them on these types of education for the consumer. How you reach out, who all here is on paper billing? Anybody on digital? Everybody on digital? We don't bill at all? Like, how do y'all bill your gas bill? Paper? Only paper? So some systems are antiquated, not just the gas system, the billing systems are antiquated. Leveraging a customer resource management tool to communicate with the client for self-reporting. We're building a generator buyer's guide right now that we want to be able to launch to every gas homeowner on what to expect when you go to buy one. When you click that website that says, I'm interested in a quote, what should you expect? What does the installation process look like? What does the permitting process look like? What manufacturers or brands should you consider? Do you know that the strength of your generators and the power of the relationship with the dealer? So those are tools we could distribute, generally speaking, through CRMs or digital advertising. Targeted mailers, and again, relationship capital, working together. We can get the message out to the consumer that we know generators are not going anywhere, but there are concerns. So at this time, I mean, I'm kind of tapped out. If I didn't hit on something, man, I'm a pincushion. Go ahead and hit me with it.
Well, I have a question. Should, in South Louisiana, compared to other areas of the country, should we just have liquid cool in South Louisiana, or what's your opinion?
So if you were a homeowner asking me, I got tons of video content on this, on how to explain the difference between air-cooled and liquid-cooled. It goes back to client expectations. What do you want to do? Do you want to run your refrigerator, one AC, your lights, and maybe your stove? Or do you want your whole house to keep going so you can watch the Saints game and not miss anything from the confines of your recliner? Well, if that's you, you got to pay to play. Air-cooled is not for you. But if your budget says it is, you're probably a bad generator owner. Truthfully, if you want to not get up off your couch when the power goes out and the AC never dropped 2 degrees, and you want your wife to be able to do her hair, blend, cook, wash clothes, all of this at the same time, that's not an unrealistic expectation. Your budget is. So a liquid cooled is for that client. We have homeowners now that we call St. Tammany area, 8,000 square foot house. We go to the house, we tell them, you spec for a 48 kW, you have 400 amp service, you need a 48 kW. Well, my neighbor's got a 26 and the other neighbor's got a 22 and the houses are the same. How do you explain that? Besides saying, well, they got screwed. So it's hard. It's hard to be a professional in that scenario. I'm going to tell you what you need. You got to tell me what you want. And then we'll blend that together, because we walk away from sales that won't do it this way. So I can't say the air-cooled product is wrong. What I can say is you got to know what you're trying to power. And I think we, as the professional, we don't allow the homeowner to say, all I need is a 20 kW. Well, that might be what you think, but it would be foolish of me to sell you that. I'd rather lose the job. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. The liquid cool product's better long-term investment, but it's not budget friendly.
Travis, about what percent do y'all install natural gas versus propane? Or is it all natural gas?
99% natural gas. Now, Baton Rouge area, so Lafourche and Terrebonne, we are very limited to propane suppliers that will do residential calls. There's a company out of Mississippi called Lampton Love, Laycox Gas, Blossman. They're all owned by one conglomerate. I think on the North Shore, it might be Blossman is the company they operate under. We do a lot of work with them, and they're mostly propane. We do the service and repair. They do the installs. In the sticks, ain't no such thing as a permit. They just slap them in there, and most of the time they're wrong, voids warranty, which is why we got involved. But most North Shore and beyond that have propane service, we push them to go propane.
You know, we were discussing the dual fuel option and maybe, so are there a bunch, or are there choices for dual fuel systems where you can program it where it does start on propane and it'll use 30 gallons of propane before it switches to natural gas? Is that readily available or not really?
Not. Because it was never demanded.
Yeah.
The manufacturer needs to have a demand response, and it has not been demanded. So I would like to think we brought it to light, because I don't want a moratorium to be put on my business. So how do I mitigate that? Why am I here? I'm here so that he doesn't tell me I'm out of business. The technology is in place. The application, the engineering to make it agronomic. You know, Kohler and Generac don't want their product to be sleek and clean on the side of a house with a 5-gallon propane pot sitting in the front of it, hooked up to a 3-way valve. Could that work? Sure. I believe that 10 to 15 gallons of propane with a bottle maybe placed in the right spot in the unit or adjacent to the unit could solve a lot of the start problems, but so could a delayed start. When I talked to Mr. Mike and Salima first, for me it was about grid. Who's on the grid? If you look at a brand new DSLD home neighborhood that's got 250 houses in it, about 90% of the residents are going to be 30s, husband, wife, 2 kids, school teacher, blue collar worker. If their power goes out, they're going to be okay if it doesn't start in 5 minutes. But if the neighborhood has an old folks home or it's elderly community, I need those units to start when the factory says they'll start. So I think before we go dual fuel, I believe we should, through self-reporting and reaching out to the clients, build some type of graph on who owns generators and determine starting delays based on those grid locations. That's how I would handle it if you put a gun to my head before we go dual fuel.
Dealing with the homeowners, you know, we all complain about most people can't change the oil in their car nowadays. Do you think that if you had a requirement in place to where convenience generators, if you want to try to coin a term, you wouldn't allow them to do auto start? I mean, that should be simple enough to train these people that can't change the oil in their vehicle how to go and manually transfer it, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, that could be done with their cell phone. I mean, manually transferring the switch would be different. Whoever talked about the manual transfer switch possibility based on the client's situation, I don't think that's a terrible idea. However, it's going to ruin a lot of commercials that are being put out right now that talk about it just starting on the back end. Correct. So, I mean, there are people who need a transfer switch. I would say, I don't know, maybe 30, 40% of our generators get sold to people who wouldn't even know how to unlock it. So the rest of them are, you know, we go do an in-home consultation for a homeowner where the husband is an oil field worker. He already knows everything and there's nothing you could tell him. So we battle that as well. He already knows, well, I changed the oil and everything. And well, yeah, but do you own a mag meter? Do you know how to amp clamp the load? Do you know what part of the system is prone to failure? Do you know how to reprogram the firmware in the computer? No. Okay, well, it's not just about changing the oil, but they still, Louisiana hardhead mentality is, I'm going to do it myself because they don't want to pay the price. And that's just not our customer. We walk away from deals like that. When you buy a generator with us, it's not even an option not to get a maintenance plan. If it's a price thing and I got to give you the first year for free, I'll do it. But on year 2, you're going to renew, or I'm just not going to service the equipment. I can't take responsibility for that. So it's not an option to not get a maintenance plan because, again, I don't want to be told that I can't operate anymore.
You know, we talked about delay switches. In your opinion, how would that play out if you could have a plan for who's first, second, and third?
I think it would start with compiling data. I think as an LGA, as an association, if we're going to plan to attack this problem, everybody compiles data, shows up at a meeting with how many consumers they service, how many are on generator power. Then we take that data and we kind of look at the buyer profile, the owner profile. How many are elderly? How many are not? How many are sick? How many are not? How many need medical equipment? What infrastructure has to run? I will tell you, the reason I'm here is my daughter plays high school basketball. I sat down at a game next to a gentleman who had one of these big, huge, fancy cameras. I assumed he was a photographer. After 2 or 3 games, I wanted to get the pictures he was taking of my daughter. So I asked him, hey, do you have a business card for your photography business? He said, oh man, I just do this for fun. I'm a man. I just said, what do you do? He said, Well, I'm a utilities director. I said, oh man, I'm in the generator space. He said, oh, we don't like y'all. I'm like, wait, hold up. He tried to walk away. So I chased him down. I said, man, why do you don't like me? Man, people be putting these things in with no permit. We get calls left and right, can't supply the gas pressure. It's just a crap show. Said, I agree. And he tried to get up and walk away, and I chased him down again. No, I want to fix this problem. I don't want you to say that I'm a problem. I want you to love me. I want to help you. When we showed up to all these gas calls, that was the gas company's fault. Man, I was protecting the gas company. I was edifying the gas company because it's not their responsibility to maintain and operate and control the generator. It's the dealer's responsibility and the homeowner's responsibility. So our industry has a black eye already. I want to fix that. You guys bring data, take that data, and then put an administration plan together. If I knew that every transfer switch in Louisiana right now could change between 3 seconds and let's just say 30 seconds, I know that would help. I know that would help the line pressure. I know that would help line pack. How we administer it is based on need, based on grid, based on location. I'm more concerned about the new subdivisions going in than I am somebody building a house, because I know that every DSLD subdivision is natural gas. Eventually, they're all going to want a generator when they get tired of running out of power. So I'm more concerned about the development and the growth on a wider scale. But I would say you administer it through data, based on grid, based on health and wellness, and change the delay, and then permit them accordingly. We need to know that Miss Janice is 88 and on oxygen, and I need her generator to start in 3 seconds, and her son, he could wait a little while. So that's how I would do it, through the data, through the client. Build a client profile.
You had mentioned professional dealer guidelines earlier. What can your industry do to improve vendor credentials, qualifications, certifications to eliminate the 2 chucks in the truck?
It is my life mission. What I love to do every day is not get up and line up generator technicians to do installs. What I love to do is educate the uneducated. And what I've found in this industry is the plaguing concern is lack of professionalism. So advocacy groups, we've already started this. Educating the dealer and weeding out the chuck in a truck has to be done through education. It has to be done from a dealer willing to take a chance to pave the way. If it's done through regulatory issues, I don't think that would be conducive to controlling the growth of the industry. It is my life mission. I'm working on it every single day on how to move them around. What I don't have control over is the manufacturer's interest. I'm not here to appease shareholder value or EBITDA or a $200, $300, $400 billion company making a profit. I'm trying to prevent somebody from killing themselves with a generator, and the only way I can do it is through the dealers.
So the professional dealer guidelines y'all have, is that standardized in the industry that all use?
Nah.
So Travis, in saying that, what makes you or stops you from making the choice on the timing issue?
Us?
You put the generator in and say there's 10 neighbors putting it in, and Miss Janice is the one you identified as sick. Okay, I'm gonna set hers at 3.
Sure.
Okay, Joe Blow like me,
Yep.
he can deal with it. I'm gonna set his at 10. What stops you from making that choice?
The wall I ran into is this conversation. So I had no idea about the concerns of the gas grid until he finally took a meeting with me. And I chased him longer than I chased the other guy to try to sit down and talk to me, not because I wanted anything from South Coast Gas other than education. But he's out here putting out fires literally and figuratively on how do we keep up. The dealers don't know this. I meant what I said. If every dealer in Louisiana was in here listening to this, they would be scared to death that there's an industry that can stop them from installing generators because they think, let's just slap them in. So for me personally, I haven't had a need to do it yet. I just started thinking about what's forthcoming. And I can tell you if there's a concern. The heels of that initial conversation when he told me he didn't like generator guys was because he said Walmart applied for a permit to get a natural gas generator. Walmart. They told Walmart no. When I look at it from a community standpoint, that's a problem for me. That's a problem for me that Walmart can't have a generator, but all these luxury homes can. Because they ain't selling me no eggs, but Walmart will. So if we got to tell Walmart no, we backing up. We ain't moving forward. We got to tell the businesses that are going to get the community back in action, we got to tell them yes. And the healthy consumers, not no, but you need to wait. And so for now, I haven't had a need to. We don't have gas problems. Like regardless of what TPCG or South Coast says, since Ida, we haven't had a widespread outage. I'm just waiting for a storm to hit so then I can put an action plan together because we're ready to go. But I don't have to administer it yet because I haven't been able to have this conversation.
The reason I asked the question because the consumer don't know.
100%.
What the time
Yep. It could be done now, but technology coming out, communication, resolutions from the gas company. If I would say I was going to go start doing this, and the first 5 minutes of the meeting, you guys had all the answers to increase pressure for everybody, it would have been foolish on my part to go change the order of operation. But if you guys are saying we need to start this now, let's develop a SOP and get it done.
What licenses do you hold currently?
Electrical, mechanical, plumbing, and business.
Are you serious?
I personally don't. You don't want. I'm not a licensed technician. I'm an engine guy, so I hired for my weaknesses because I wanted to advocate for the industry. So I allow the licensed professionals to do the work, and I do this. You had talked about dealer advocacy. One thing I'm working on now is a national awareness and response team. As generator companies, I don't know how many there is in Louisiana, but if you told me 250,000 generators, I wouldn't be surprised. When we have a statewide outage, such as a Category 5 hurricane or a majority of the statewide outage, why aren't generator companies showing up like the power line company? So when the dealers sell, somebody mentioned the price. I want to go into that here secondly. But when the dealers sell generators, some of these larger dealers selling 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 a day and have thousands of preventive maintenance contracts. Well, I don't have to tell you that when all of them go down at the same time, you don't have enough technicians to serve all those clients. And so what it does is black our industry once again. Why don't we have a cooperative endeavor to where if Louisiana gets hit by a storm, generator technicians from Ohio are coming down here to help. Where's the cavalry to help edify the industry? And I've been working my tail off to put it together. But you just got hard heads in the blue collar trades industry that are worried about themselves, and it might take a moratorium to wake them up.
I know we're talking specifically about Louisiana right now, but what are you hearing out of states like Florida and Texas when it comes to situations like what we're having here?
90% propane.
90% propane.
Yeah. Our numbers are going to flip when you go to Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas.
Why is it?
I don't know. I can tell you if I could do them all propane, I would, because it helps me. The unit's running cooler, longer, faster, stronger. But I'll tell you, we coach dealers in Florida. I would have thought dealers in Florida would battle permitting regulations to no end. You don't even need a permit in Florida. You just slap it in because they're not going to have a grid problem. And the power supplier, he's off the hook when the power goes out. The generator's taking the burden off of him. If you have a generator that's running your entire house, how many times are you going to call Entergy and complain? Not very many. The gas company is the one who bears the burden. And when you're in high propane areas, generators are the best thing ever. You get to high natural gas area, it's junk. So in Florida, the dealer tells the power company when to show up for the disconnect. We got to beg Entergy to show up when we want them to show up. And sometimes they show up to pull the meter at 7 a.m. and we're done with the install at 3 p.m. and they just won't come back. So we have to run the generator for 24 or 30 hours to power the consumer. When Entergy decides, oh, that was an emergency service ticket? Well, the meter's on the center console of your truck. Of course it was an emergency. So other states that aren't under the governance of Entergy, it's a much better of experience. I got to be honest, I'm not throwing Entergy under the bus, but I would if they were here because it's a problem.
You do realize I retired from there.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We talked about price. I think Mr. Mack said it. The pricing has changed. I'm gonna tell you something, and this might go and upset some people. If somebody's installing a generator turnkey for $10,000, run. You cannot install a generator correctly for $10,000 with the equipment. It's not gonna happen. Our average ticket's about $17,000 on an air-cooled install. Average ticket. That doesn't mean that's everyone. We kind of start out somewhere in the 13s or 14s, and depending on how long the gas run is, some meters are on the opposite end of the house. We have to pass through the attic with wire. It's just not going to cost 10 grand. The unit itself is $7,500. I can't provide the transfer switch, the material, and everything, the permitting and plumbing. Go try to hire a plumber to run a gas line. It's going to be about $2,000 to $3,000 to run it from here to there. So we had to hire that. So if it's 10 grand, run, because it's not going to be I don't care what anybody says. If it's cheap, it ain't good. It might be fast, but it's not going to be good. It's not about profitability.
So what is the best 26 kW whole house generator?
It's not even close. Not even close as Kohler. Not even close. Yep. And bring any Generac guy in here and duel me. It's not even close. Hydraulic lifters. There's zero metal-to-metal contact in the valve train. That's going to minimize the oil breakdown, elongate the oil service life. It has boost windings in the armature to handle the harsh loads of the AC and heavy demand. The controller is the most ergonomic, smart, easy to integrate controller on the market. It's bigger, stronger, quieter, faster, more fuel efficient. It's not even close. And I would fight that to the death.
30K for 26?
What's that?
30K for 26?
Installed?
Yeah.
About $17,500. Yep. The unit itself's about $7,500. Typical double the price of the unit. That should be what it costs to install.
Difference between a 30 kW and 26 kW.
Oh, so an air-cooled unit, here's the rule of thumb. Whatever the price of the air-cooled unit is, double it, and that's the price of the comparable liquid cooled. So a $7,000 air-cooled unit, to get into the entry level of a liquid cooled, it's gonna be $14,000. The installation doesn't change much. The same work is still done, but liquid cooled requires bigger wire, sometimes a different transfer switch, bigger concrete slab, bigger stand if you put it on a stand, but for the most part, it's about the same. Liquid cooled actually is going to burn less gas. It's not near as loaded. We want the unit to run 50% or less load at minimal standards. We don't want generators running at 30% load. They'll light load the engine. That's a bad thing for it. But I don't want it to live its life at 80%. I want it to hover somewhere around 60 to 70%, provide adequate burn off for the machine, and then power the home most efficiently, cooler, less BTU, less impact on the gas grid. Anybody else? I appreciate it. Yeah, thank y'all.